Christer Idhammar got on a merchant marine ship at 16 and spent the next 6 decades making sure nobody else's equipment failed the way those ships did. He founded IDCon Inc. in 1985 and has since worked with hundreds of companies building sustainable reliability cultures from the ground up. He's written thousands of articles, authored multiple books including his memoir, Knocking Bolts, and received the Euro Maintenance Incentive Award for Outstanding Achievement in Reliability and Maintenance. A multi-award-winning keynote speaker and widely recognized as the godfather of reliability, he is now part of Total Resource Management. Dick DeFazio started his career maintaining jet aircraft in the United States Air Force. From there, he spent 8 years with the New York State Power Authority on the construction and startup of hydroelectric and nuclear generating facilities, before founding Performance Consulting Associates in 1976. Nearly 50 years later, PCA has helped hundreds of Fortune 50 to Fortune 500 companies across dozens of industries improve maintenance, reliability, and asset management. Dick is a board-certified management consultant and has spent his career doing one thing better than almost anyone, translating the business value of reliability into language that executives actually understand. He is now part of Total Resource Management. Bob DiStefano began his career in the U.S. commercial nuclear power industry, where the consequences of equipment failure were simply unacceptable. That standard of zero tolerance shaped everything that followed. He founded Management Resources Group, a professional engineering consulting firm that grew to serve hundreds of industrial plants across 14 industries, with a large percentage of Fortune 500 companies among its clients. He built it into a company attractive enough to be acquired by Emerson Electric. After 2 years as Emerson's vice president, he semi-retired, then came out of retirement to join PCA, which is now part of Total Resource Management. Bob is a published author, keynote speaker, and one of the earliest certified maintenance and reliability professionals. Gentlemen, welcome to The Stand.
Wow. What a cast here. We've got Dick DeFazio and Bob DiStefano and Christer Idhammar. I'm so honored to be here and have a chance to talk to all of you. Welcome to The Stand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's tell the audience a little bit about each one of you. I mean, I know you, most people know you, but for the people who may be watching that don't know you, Dick, I think you said to me yesterday, you've been doing this for almost 50 years?
50 years, yeah. I don't know if you know this, but I went to one of the first IMC conferences in Clearwater.
Yes.
Back in the 80s, maybe the first one in 84.
That's right.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And, it was so small. And I spoke at that conference, and, the things that we talked about then are relevant today.
It's amazing.
Same kind of things.
It's amazing, isn't it? Wow. So what is at the core of what you do and why is really what we want to find out. With your life's work, you've really helped so many companies. We worked with you at U.S. Sugar and several others.
Yeah.
What is your life's work all about? What's the aim of it?
Well, the biggest issue that we get called upon by companies, and I think it's the same for the rest, is people are trying to figure out how to improve productivity. They're trying to figure out how to reduce cost. They're trying to figure out how to reduce unscheduled downtime in their manufacturing and plant process. And that takes on a lot of different technologies and services. And so we spent, my whole career pretty much trying to train people and look at organizations and how to improve them so that they can do a better job at maintenance and reliability. In the old days, we never called it reliability. It was all maintenance.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Bob, what about you? You've had a couple of companies. You've led your own company. You sold one. Now you led another company, and you're joining a third company with that. What's been your aim? What's been your driving force?
I would have to say, and I think you know this well, is to try to get the executive level in these industrial companies to recognize the business value of this tactical, quote unquote, tactical stuff down at the ground level in the plants. How does that translate into whatever their strategic goals are? Could be financial, could be otherwise. And I think that may be one of the reasons why I've been 47 years in the business. I feel like a youngster compared to these two guys. But why are we still struggling with the same problems that he wrote the book on 50 years ago? is because the executives don't understand it. I've been spending most of my life trying to translate into their language, not ask them to learn our language. You know, how do you speak at the C-level, and how do you make it relevant to them? I've made some progress, but there's still a long way to go. I'll be long retired, I think, before the masses figure it out.
Well, I remember your great work, the business case for reliability, and that was really the first time I'd seen it connected to the executive space.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
Yep.
Christer, what a guy. Got on a merchant marine ship at 16, and then from there, the rest is history. You've had a very long career here. You've helped so many companies around the world, started your own company, and written books, and we see you at a lot of conferences. You're so generous with your knowledge. What's your driver? What's your aim?
Well, I think it started very, very early. You know, if I start from the very beginning, when I went down in the engine room on board the ship, 64 years ago on the 10th of January next year.
Wow.
But anyway, and I experienced how poorly maintained they were, many of them. There were no system at all, right? And the first ship was a tanker, a big tanker, the biggest that can go through the Suez Canal at that time, 42,000 tons, which is nothing today. But anyway, we had some really critical situations, and I just remember, for example, a compressor that went bad that you used for startup air for those huge engines. Without it, you couldn't start it, you couldn't operate. Well, we fixed it.
It was like a rowboat. You were like a rowboat then.
But anyway, there were many, many other incidents like that. But I realized how important reliability is. Even we called it something else at that time.
Yeah.
But anyway, since then, I've been very, very passionate about it, because after that, really, the first jobs in the industry was pulp and paper, because I'm from Sweden and I worked in all their mills, I think. And just to work with the people in those industries and see what fantastic results you can achieve with very basic things. Very basic things. And you know, if you take back to the basic principles of how to manage maintenance, if you Google how to maintain the aqueducts in Rome, that was the emperor there. There was lacking water in Rome, and that could lead to a revolution. So he assigned a person, I don't remember his name, Sixtus something, and to do something about it. And he said, we need to look into maintenance, and then he made a lot of write-ups. And basically, he said, we need to inspect, plan, schedule, and execute. Yeah, basically.
So we figured it out a while back. We just haven't executed very well on it.
And the result was actually that they got surplus water in Rome. And that is something I have seen, and most probably you guys do, that when you work with multiple plants, they actually, they get surplus, so they can, the equivalent to building a new plant sometimes.
And they built a global empire on it.
Yeah.
On maintenance, really, if you stop and think about it.
And I've always been interested in gadgets, you know, I mean, instruments, tools, technology, and people more than anything.
Well, let's circle back to the other question. That is that, you know, if the Romans figured it out and you figured it out and told us all about it, you know, 50, 60 years ago, why is it still so difficult for these companies, and why are they suffering from lack of those basics?
Because of what Deming said many, many years ago, the lack of constancy of purpose and the mobility of top management. Top management, new approach, new initiatives, and after a while those companies get what I call improvement fatigue or change fatigue.
Yeah.
It's difficult to follow. How long is this program going to last? So it starts on the top management to understand it, and I think they understand it, but you know, to get the results, you can get some small results fairly quickly. But to get the breakthrough results, that's 2 to 7 years, and that might not be around then.
That's right. Interesting, because at 2 or 3 years is their average tenure.
Maximum.
Yeah, you know, well, Bob, you talked about, you know, being able to then translate that quickly to the executive suite. Is it that the strategy of the business is disconnected from the tactics on the floor? Is that what it is?
Most definitely. And I think the short-term nature of the tenure of these executives that Christer just pointed out is another risk of not maintaining the program. When a new person comes in, they have their own experiences that they're bringing with them, and they want to implement what was successful to them. Well, we know that, you know, change, human behavior change takes I usually say 4 to 7 years to permanently take hold. And if you change programs every 2 years, just at the time you're changing gears is about the time when the benefits are about to start accruing. And this has happened so often.
It's like a cycle.
The people in the mid-level of the company and down all know we've been through this before. We were just about. So I think one of the answers is we need to document a multi-year vision. Clearly, it needs to be signed by the CEO. And when the new company head comes in, everybody in the company says, well, Mr. So-and-so, wait a minute, we are on a journey right now, and here's where we are. We were expecting to be here. This is where we are. This is what's coming next. And if you pull the plug on this, it's going to be all wasted energy.
It's the management team of these companies and these plants that just haven't institutionalized change. And there's so much turnover today. We went through COVID, and now we're finding a whole generation of younger people in plants still calling us to talk about planning and scheduling. I met Christer in the early 90s at the old International Maintenance show in Chicago, the manufacturing conference. Yes. And I remember saying to Christer, I said, one of these days we're going to run out of work, Christer, because everybody's going to be trained. And he looked and laughed at me and he says, are you crazy? We'll be working forever. And that's what we're seeing is, so many young people today just don't know the basics. And they're not learning it in school either.
Well, and where's technology play with that? Because back then, there wasn't a lot of powerful technology. You were doing it on index cards or on a whiteboard. What has technology slowed us down?
No, it's gotten really better. The technology is continually getting better. And the younger generation today are embracing the technology that the generation before them didn't. Mm-hmm. And it's easier for them to learn the technology. I mean, I tell people I want the software and the systems in place before I get there because I can't teach them with number 2 pencils and paper. So, it's fundamental.
We did a survey here. 50% of this audience can't get a work order on a mobile device with the systems that they have. Is that holding us back?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, because the assets there, the technicians there, and the computers over there.
And that's leadership. To me, it always comes back to the leadership.
Oh, yes.
I mean, if the leadership understood the value of doing this stuff and enforcing these standards and that not allowing each plant manager to decide how are they going to manage their assets, they're the same assets from plant to plant. Yeah. Why is every plant manager treating their equipment differently? We know how a centrifugal pump fails. We should have a standard PM program for that centrifugal pump, and it should be duplicated throughout the rest of the company. Those standards rise to the level of strategy, in my view. Like a CFO would never allow the plant manager to decide which software system to use to report his financials. It's strategic to the company. Yeah. They don't have a choice. Right. And we believe that reliability rises to that strategic level. There shouldn't be that much autonomy at the plant level for those kinds of decisions.
Very interesting.
What's interesting, Terry, is for the last 30, 35 years, the three of us were competitors, but we've always been friends. Yeah. And today, we're all on the same team working for the same company.
That's great. It's TRM has put you all together. And
we have no competition anymore. Same company.
I like it. I think so now your 16-year-old selves or 18-year-old selves are coming into this business. So what would you tell your 16-year-old self if you could talk to yourself now?
Well, I would, first of all, I would, of course, ask what they would like to do. And I would definitely encourage them, if they would like to do that, to go to a vocational school, trade school.
I thought we were all supposed to go to college and get
not all of them.
Degrees.
Not all of them. And one of my sons became a professional diver. I mean, he made fortunes on diving. I mean, it was a 1-year school to become that. Unfortunately, he had an accident later, but he still has a very good job from the skills he learned there, right? I would tell them that it's a good job. If you would like to become an electrician, for example, okay, you become a good electrician. You can also start your own company if you want to after that. It's such a need for them, right?
I was just reading, they're building all the data centers in the East Coast, in Virginia. Those electricians are making over $200,000.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
There's nothing wrong with being a skilled tradesman today.
No.
And that's what we need more of, is more skilled trades.
So 16-year-old self, what are you telling yourself?
Question whether you really want to go to college. After high school, learn a trade, learn a good skill that'll take you through life, because the money will be there. And we all need those kind of skills.
And this is coming from a generation of parents who we were first generation college.
Yeah.
Most of us, I think all three of us probably were. And our parents said, you will go to college and you're going to be different than we worked with our backs. You're going to work with your brain. That's a major statement coming from a guy of our age. So I would encourage the youngsters to have the courage to stand up and make waves. It's not a leap of faith. We know what works. If you can learn that and then just have confidence and communicate those things, you can probably, if you're inclined, get ahead in the company much more quickly.
All right, so now we get through the vocational stuff and we gain those technical skills, but you're talking about being able to communicate to the executive suite. Where can we pick up the skills where we can at least have a fundamental understanding of how to communicate with that executive suite?
That's tough. I mean, as you know, it's your conferences and elsewhere have taught people how to read income statements. Well, wait a minute, we're maintenance people. What do we need to know about an income statement? You need to understand how reduced maintenance expenses are going to improve shareholder value in dollars and cents in some cases. So I don't know if there's a reliable source for this. What do you guys think?
Well, I think that coming to conferences like this is a great way for them to learn. With all of the sessions that you have and the experience that you have with these sessions, they can gain a great understanding.
Isn't it amazing, though? I mean, I'd like to go back to that original IMC and look at the agenda and match it to the agenda that we're doing here. And see how many of those are a direct hit. I think you're on to something.
Yeah.
What do you think, Christer?
No, I think, as Dick said here, to come to conferences like this is one good starting point. But
the boss looks at this and says, "Wait a second, you're in Florida in December.
Beach.
Yeah. You're on a junket. You're on a junket down here."
No, look at the attendance here. So a lot of people are coming anyway.
Yeah.
But I think that can be misled to some extent, because if you look at this conference and others, today it's all about AI, and technology, right? So they might be misled in the way to say, oh, that's what it is. And then they come out into an industry and they meet another reality, because they are not most ready for all the technology that I learned here. They also have to learn about the very basics and make that interesting and attractive to them, right?
People here sometimes talk about people, data, process, technology. Are they equal, or is there one more equal than another?
I think they are all needed.
Yeah, I think they're all relevant.
Yeah, it's
you can't really do one with that. They're interconnected.
No.
Maybe that's part of the difficulties. Those are tough areas.
If I would say, I think people probably has an edge. Because the leadership problem is a people problem.
Yes.
It's a courage problem. They're all absolutely essential.
It's kind of funny too, right? Because you mentioned Deming earlier. He had to go to Japan to find somebody to listen to him.
Yeah.
But once that took off, then we started listening to him.
We woke up. Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
I don't know what the wake-up call is going to be now. Well, there's a lot of companies that are proactive.
No, that's true.
Oh, yes. The right thing.
There are companies who have posted top quartile results by standardizing and really having the courage and the long-term fortitude to make these changes and to enforce them. And those are good examples.
I think that you said it. It's good maintenance is about short-term versus long-term. And you have to think long-term. And to really talk about asset management, and when I started, by the way, it was called Tero Technology, right?
Yes.
But we have to change names. But anyway, if you talk about true asset management, you have to think of at least 15 years, right? And beyond that. Because if you're going to look at life cycle cost of a piece of equipment, you can't look at 3 years.
No.
But most of these companies are even on 12-month budgets, and they zero budget every year.
So therefore, the companies we have helped that has been most successful has been privately held companies.
Agreed.
Interesting.
Because
they don't have that quarterly pressure.
Exactly.
100%.
Right.
And they think
DeFazio
long-term.
Steel, one of the earliest ones, privately owned. Eli Lilly, one of the earliest adopters, privately owned. Cargill, privately owned.
Yes.
Those are three excellent
So
early
they don't have
adopter
that
examples.
external pressure, that financial
not the
performance.
the quarterly performance with Wall Street.
Because when you're EBITDA driven, you're going to make choices that are more short term because you need that EBITDA to line up where you want it.
Yeah, well, that's what the board wants.
Yeah.
So now how do we connect that front line with the board?
These are the 4 fundamentals of reliability leadership. Lists are a good starting point. But stories, that's where the learning happens. If the concepts of reliability leadership haven't quite connected for you, hearing them brought to life inside a reliability leader's journey will open up a whole new level of understanding. These are the reliability leadership stories. The concepts of the Uptime elements seen in context in stories inspired by a lifetime of reliability leadership. Don't just know the concepts, understand them. Subscribe for free at reliabilityleadership.org and hear a reliability leadership story today.
Interesting question. I mean, it's just continual education. It's continual discussion. It's bringing in people that think out of the box and think differently about the organization. And you've got to find those leaders in your organization.
Is it ownership? Is it caring? Is it will? Are we missing will? Are we missing caring? Are we missing ownership?
I think we're missing knowledge. I think they don't understand the value of this technical thing, that they have people in the bowels of the organization. I'm thinking like an executive now that take care of this thing called maintenance. I don't worry about that. It doesn't rise to my level, but they do need to worry about it.
Yeah.
You know, most maintenance is actually preventable. So one thing I have done is many times to say, okay, before I come to your plant, can you collect the 5 latest breakdowns you have had and tell me the story about those? And then we discuss, okay, how could these have been prevented? And it comes down to often we didn't even inspect it or we didn't lubricate. I mean, very basic stuff. Yeah. Now use those examples and put numbers on those examples and the cost of those, right? And let's talk to the plant manager first. And then from there up.
That's the business case.
I think it's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. But that's real because it's their reality, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you do what you all do and the magic happens and the breakthrough happens in that 5 or 7 year, you become invisible. In a way, you become invisible because there aren't daily breakdowns. There aren't emergencies every day. And then the CEO, as you refer, thinks this is just the way my organization is. You know, so what about the invisibility of once you kind of get over that line and you disappear into the background of the company? You know, the salespeople are getting rewarded for increasing sales, the warehousing people for efficiency, but the maintenance people who make the problems disappear, now there's just no problems, and no one's celebrating the fact that today was a boring day at the plant.
I haven't seen that yet. I'm not sure we're going to see a boring day in a plant yet.
No, that's.
But you can always count on some chaos.
There's always chaos.
To get to that point, we do have to celebrate that. We have to make sure it's clear the contribution that invisible force is making to the company's performance.
Well, and don't you think with younger people too, that sort of acknowledgement, the prize, the trophy, we need. They really do thrive on. I'm not saying that negatively. They really do thrive.
Totally
on that.
agree. Totally agree.
It's a reward system.
You know, I heard accountants saying, why do we spend so much money on maintenance when we never have any breakdowns?
Well, there's an interesting...
And I mean, that's...
I'm sure both Dick and Christer have experienced this, but there have been companies, Roman Haas is a good example, years and years ago, when I was still young in the business, had implemented fantastic operational excellence measures, and maintenance was an important component of that. And at some point, a new regime came into control of the company and said, we don't have any... This kind of happened to some extent at Cargill as well, more recently. We don't have reliability problems in this company anymore, and they stripped the company of all of these quote-unquote reliability infrastructure elements.
We made it. We're over the line.
We made it. We don't. Yeah. So you think permanent culture, finally, you stretch the rubber band long enough, it finally deformed, and now it's going to stay in its new shape. It's going to be harder to go back to the old way. That's the school of thought in behavioral thinking, right? But that is a huge mistake because that sustaining, monitoring, and understanding of the condition and the health of the equipment is absolutely essential to keeping it that way.
So Christer's saying start with the basics. You've made company transformation just by dealing with their parts issue. Most of the maintainers have a hard time running the hardware store inside their company.
Oh my God,
the costs spiral.
Yeah. Companies spend millions on spare parts and inventory, and they don't manage it well. You know, we find that between 40 and 60% of parts in a storeroom are obsolete.
No.
They're never going to get used. Yeah, they're only using 25 to 30% of the parts in the storeroom, and those inventories run into millions. And we just have to do a better job managing the parts. Because for every job that a technician or a maintenance mechanic does, they need a part. They need something to go do the fix. And it has to be on the shelf and ready to go.
Well, is that a starting point? I mean, I see people sometimes in second and third year of their journey, and they hit a wall because they have not handled that aspect of the operation.
Right. Well, and we get a lot of calls from executives that just focus on the cost side of it and say, we've got to reduce this inventory. Well, you got to reduce it smartly.
Sometimes they do the dumpster method.
Yeah. The other thing that they're not focused enough on, and Bob managed to understand this for a lot of years, is the master data. We get into so many plants.
Is that from the starting point? They didn't have a clear vision of the master data they needed from the start?
Yes.
Yeah, the data was terrible to begin with when they implemented a new EAM system.
But wait a second, didn't they have that data when they created the asset?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the data was there. They didn't.
Well, actually,
A vendor had it.
They had it, so they had it.
Well, when you think about it,
where's it lost? Where's it lost in this chain?
when you think about the capital projects, the CapEx organization builds a new plant. Did they have the data? I mean, at the last minute, right before they were ready to commission the plant, they back the dump truck up and they dump all the tech manuals on the back of the operators. Now the operators have to start learning what is this equipment that we have that we're going to learn. Do they really have the data at day one? I don't know. I question that.
Yeah.
What have you seen capital projects seamlessly hand off to operations?
No.
Rarely.
No.
Chevron has done a
Two
good
different
job of
budgets.
that, but it's unusual.
Is that why?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, they're in a hurry to get the project finished.
I think it's a lot of knowledge also in the capex side, in what maintainability is and what reliability truly is.
We worked with a company. We both worked with a company that does a lot of the CapEx stuff.
Yep.
And they say that these companies, these contractors that are building the plants want to start, they spot that as an opportunity. Oh, well, guy doesn't have the data. We have the data for your plant.
Yes.
But we'd like to sell it to you, not give it to you.
That's right. And actually, we've encouraged executives to say, look, you should impose on all of your contractors a standard format during the design and construction phase in which you should provide all of the necessary information for the equipment.
In the format.
In our format, not in
not
your
a dump truck.
15 different formats coming in, right? And we have demonstrated that while they're going to charge you a little more for not putting their least qualified people on this, because now there has to be some thought put into it, to provide this necessary information, there's going to be a 1 or 2% increase in that capital project. But do you know what the payback is for that in terms of the life cycle of the assets? 30, 40 years of reduced maintenance cost? It's astronomical.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's so unbelievable that the executives say, well, that can't be true. It's impossible. But it is true. We have case studies that have demonstrated that.
Interesting.
It's a different budgets.
That's right. It's a different
Dick,
two different
Two silos.
Also, aren't those OEMs
right.
sort of setting what those plants end up with for spare parts?
Yes.
Oh, sure, because that's what they're in business to do.
Yeah.
It's like buying a car and going back to the dealer. They're going to sell you parts. They make all their money in service.
Yeah.
Parts and service.
Parts and service.
So what's a company to do about that? Do you same thing? Do you impose some conditions on the capital project, or what? How do you sort of survive that recommended spare parts?
They got to start thinking about reliability when they start designing the project. It's got to go way back to the design phase. Yeah. They got to understand how this equipment's going to run when they go operational, and understand what the failure patterns might be down the road, even though they don't know. So there's a lot of historical data that they could get from the manufacturer and the OEMs that they don't go after.
Yeah, and the OEMs guard that fairly closely.
And as you said, they want to sell it.
Because they want to sell parts.
And we're starting to hear stories like, there was an original equipment manufacturer of the bearing, but when you buy that bearing installed they don't use that same part number. So you can't go back to the original. You got to buy it from them, even though it's a standardized bearing.
Well, one thing you can do is the first time you open that machine up, you find out they used an SKF bearing in there. Now we change the source for that bearing. We're not going to go to the
So you
OEM.
need a discipline
You do.
to do that.
You need. It's it's storeroom optimization, and there are companies that do that really well, and there's millions and millions of dollars to be made.
What's been the most satisfying project? Is that possible to even answer? I mean, did you have a group that just took your stuff like a sponge and applied it and kept on improving it?
For me it has been very much in pulp and paper industry.
Okay.
Really, where I started in industry, and I really like that industry, because if you take a paper machine, the latest one I worked on in Sweden is 1,450 feet long, and you wonder how can they get from the wet end to actually getting paper out there. It's amazing. And it's a tempo in that industry. It's a sense of urgency. If something happened to a machine like that, if you work in a power plant where they have more or less redundancy on almost every equipment, there's no urgency really. Right. We have a spare unit here. And I like to work in industries where there is a sense of
what necessity is the mother of invention, right?
What's satisfying is to see young individuals that we've worked with at plants early in our careers or early in the program now maturing to where they really understand and know reliability. You have one here, Brendan Russ. Yes. When we were working for U.S. Sugar, he was a young kid working in the mill here in Clewiston, and now he's pretty well respected and knowledgeable.
And if you remember, we had his CEO at the time came and keynoted, helped us arrange that, and he said that maintenance is not the business of the CEO, but then he went on to tell us the monetary story of what it was the business to do and where that related to maintenance.
Exactly.
So it wasn't a direct, like you say, he wasn't going to go learn maintenance. He wasn't going to, but he did learn the effects of maintenance on his business performance.
Exactly.
With increased automation, then we see that it is maintenance, because as long as the equipment works, they're making product. And there are hardly any operators, right?
Yeah.
It's mostly maintenance people. So suddenly they will discover that really it's the maintenance people that keeps the production running.
The saving grace for maintenance may end up being automation.
I mean, it's a simple message. As long as the equipment is running, you're making product.
Well, and then tell me that, I guess maybe we'll close on this. You're saying that, in this conference, and all the conferences are starting to be AI, AI. Maintenance seems to be a great career.
Yes.
In the context of all this automation that's going, because someone's got to fix the robot. Somebody's got to get the robot back up and going. Is that am I off on that?
I don't think so. I think you're
absolutely right.
It's a safe part of the organization to live in now, I think.
Yes.
Even with the advent, and we don't even know what AI is, what the ultimate impacts of AI.
That's right.
Nobody really knows, but you could imagine it's going to be dramatic, because it's already dramatic even in its infancy. But maintenance, I don't see how you replace the wrench turner.
At some point in time, somebody's got to fix something.
Yeah. Somebody's got to fix something.
Yeah, that's great.
It doesn't all last forever.
Even sensors needs maintenance.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, it's...
So are you hopeful or are you skeptic for the future?
Man, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a critical mass of new knowledge that when I first started, when you and I first met, and Dick and I first met, this knowledge wasn't out there, generally speaking. A lot of the presentations were elementary. Right. Now we have more advanced knowledge out there, including with middle-level management and some executives.
Yeah. We have HR people here at this conference, and I think some of the maintainers are figuring out, if I link with HR, they got a lot better training power, competency-based learning power. They can make things happen in the organization that the maintenance managers maybe didn't have that kind of corporate influence.
Yeah, because they need the training.
Yep.
They need the training. They need the development. Got to continually develop the talent within the organization, and that's going to come from HR.
Yeah.
So they need to understand.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So any closing? We'll start with you. Give us a closing thought on this whole discussion.
It's just great to still be a part of what's going on in the industry. It's great to see the transformation. It's great to see so many new young people involved, and that we're making progress. I think we're making really good progress.
I really like hearing that, and it does give us all hope. What about you, Bob?
I agree with that. We are making progress, and I would say that a career in maintenance and reliability has been very good to me, financially as well as intellectually rewarding, and being able to pass on knowledge as I've gotten older to younger people and mentor people.
And many of the people you mentor to become successful people in their own right.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and that's very gratifying and very satisfying. So, I mean, I'm very hopeful about the future, and I want to encourage people to get in maintenance and reliability. It's a good career. It's really, really solid. It will take care of you, whether it's money you're after, whether it's recognition, whether it's peer, satisfaction. There's a lot of good things, and it's very integrity is of utmost importance in this business.
Yeah, the reliability of the bridge, the integrity of the bridge, the reliability of the data, the integrity of the data. They seem to go hand in hand.
So don't hesitate. Come into the business.
When I first wrote the book where we included integrity, in fact, I called you and you said I think your grandfather said integrity is what you do when no one is looking.
Exactly. When you do the right thing when no one is looking.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I remember that. That really hit me. Christer, hopeful?
Well, I can just chime in. I agree with the same thing. It's a great career if you start working in maintenance. But the challenge will definitely be top management. And just to end this with a story, I talked to top managers in a big corporations, and you made a spell talk about the reliability importance, the cost of 1% loss, etc., etc. And then the question came from the very top guy and said, "Christer, I agree with everything you say, but first we have to cut the cost."
So then,
you stand there like, okay, I must not have explained this very well. Because I couldn't tell him, you didn't get it. I couldn't say that.
No, you couldn't. Yeah, but that's what happened.
No, but I mean, it's like the top management.
You should have gone into diplomacy. You should have been in statesman.
He should have, yeah.
Yeah, I should have. But we still work for that company, by the way. So.
Well, that's great. Well,
something must have been right.
I think that everyone's going to really enjoy this discussion. I really appreciate you guys taking some time and giving us your perspective. It's priceless, really is. I want to thank you from the bottom
appreciate
line.
It.
Plus all the contributions you made to the community over the years in our conference, but all really widely over the global community. You've all traveled the world, and people respect you from all over. And I really want to thank you for taking this time and sharing with us.